Hello, everyone. Welcome to Media Crash. This is episode 7, and today we are going to be talking about the RPG genre as a whole. And my name is Holden, otherwise known as Time to Grind.
My name is Daniel, otherwise known as Not Daniel on the internet. Got to keep it anonymous.
My name is Matthew, also known as Satir.
On the internet. So we just wanted to talk about the RPG genre. I know a lot of it is either, tabletop games or video games. So we're going to be probably talking a lot less about like movies and, TV shows and stuff like that in this episode. But there's just so much to talk about in the RPG genre as a whole. And I know for Matthew and Daniel, I think, isn't this like one of your guys' like just favorite genres of video games?
Honestly, yeah.
I definitely say so.
Way more time than I'm willing to admit into RPGs.
With what my definition of RPG is, which is not, I think, the correct definition, but it's my definition.
When you said it, so it's not correct.
Yeah, well, what's your definition of RPG?
So I guess it's in the name, but so for my hope for a game that's an RPG, like a video game, I'd have to feel at least like while I'm playing it, does have to be like, it could be like a set character or it could be my own character, but I have to feel like I'm able to like choose what I want to do with him, like the character,
like kind of in terms of like skills or leveling up or ability.
It could be that, but also could just be story. Like either way goes. It's like if I feel like I'm in control of this character and I get to make decisions, then I feel like it's an RPG.
Okay, so some of it could just be story based, but then also you would consider things like if you're just leveling up and choosing like what skill trees to go down, that kind of fits into what you're thinking.
Yeah.
I'd say an RPG for me would be like any game where you can make meaningful choices that impact how you interact with the world. Because then you're actually like, as the name implies, RPG, role-playing game, you get to play out whatever role you select. And, sometimes in like gameplay-focused RPGs like Borderlands, that's picking your skill tree or weapons or whatever. And sometimes in story-based RPGs, that's picking who you side with. Am I going to go Stormcloak or Imperial this run? That sort of thing.
Yeah, and I remember, like, it seems like RPG, for a lot of game genres, like, it's like a puzzle game, what a puzzle game is, like, how it's going to, be. But, like, it seems like for RPGs, there's so many different types of games that, like, fit in the RPG category because you have games
vague.
Yeah, like you have games like that are kind of like more just like Borderlands or Fallout or Skyrim that, are just like you're in this huge world. But then you have like, kind of top-down games like Diablo and Torchlight. And then, you have games that like mimic like the tabletop RPGs like, Torchlight and stuff like that.
Like
or Diablo.
If someone comes to you and gives you a title of a game and you're like, I don't know what that is. What is that? And they describe it as an RPG. Do you like have a specific game in mind when they just say RPG, or do you immediately go, okay, what kind of RPG?
Normally when I think RPG, I think something with like a skill progression system, but that's because I love D&D and started out playing 3.5, so like I'm real big into character creation. Because
if someone just said it's an RPG, I'd probably go, okay, well, is it like an RPG shooter, or is it like a turn-by-turn game? Because there's just, it could be either. It could be a fucking shooter, it could be like a slice of life, just like who do you want to romance in a high school or whatever, or
yeah,
I think that's called dating.
It's probably biased, but I definitely think of more like games like Borderlands, or like at least first impression would be games like Borderlands or Skyrim or Fallout. Mainly because like out of all of the RPGs, I tend to not play a ton of story games, but Borderlands is probably like my favorite like RPG or RPG franchise or whatever you want to say, just because like I'm a big first person shooter guy, so it kind of like incorporates a lot of that in, and then a lot of quirky elements and story and stuff like that. But I know you guys are also super into more of the Bethesda type RPGs.
Yeah. One game that I got hooked on recently, well, I say recently, a few months ago, but I was pretty much like in it completely when I was playing it. It's this game called Underrail. No relation to Undertale, a way more popular game. Found it from this YouTuber, Sith Sintach, really good videos. It's so grasping, like it's like a modern Fallout New Vegas, as far as like it's an RPG with good mechanics that also has a good story. Like nowadays, I feel like you got to pick one. It's either going to have a good mechanic or have a good set of mechanics, or it's going to be a walking simulator. And a lot of the times, like RPGs fall into one of those two categories. But every once in a while, you get a real treat, and you'll have one that meshes both really well.
Mm-hmm. Is it more of like is it one where you like kind of control the camera like Fallout, or is it like a top-down thing? How does it kind of play?
Isometric. So you view from like the corner of a room, basically. You're like another scavenger. Well, I wouldn't say scavenger. You're another dweller of this underground world in the metros of a ruined world. It's a post-apocalyptic game. Oh, it would have been good for that post-apocalypse episode, whichever one that was.
Second.
The second one. Go check it out. Yeah. Pretty fun game. Matthew, you should play it. I remember spamming you, saying you should play it.
Yes, you have.
You should do it.
It's similar to that. My favorite post-apocalyptic RPG. It's Fallout, obviously, but I was going to try to say, Anthem. I was going to make a joke saying it was Anthem, but
Oh, yeah.
But,
it's so
not like who even made that game? That was BioWare. I only know it was like another one of those life service games,
which made one of the best RPGs out there. Fucking Mass Effect 2, man. That's a great one.
And then you have Mass Effect 3 with the different colored explosion endings.
And then they topped themselves off with Mass Effect Andromeda.
But Fallout is probably my favorite RPG. I have the most emotional. It's probably the franchise I'm just the most invested in, like just nostalgically, which is tragic.
Being
due to
really
reason.
young and like you coming over, bringing Fallout 3 over.
Yeah.
I stole it from you before I bought it myself.
Yeah, I remember that. But which is sad because recent events. Everyone has that franchise that they loved as a kid just get butchered by a company.
Yep.
I mean, butchered. They also created the franchise, to be fair. But
they mishandled that so bad. You can tell they're just trying to gouge it for money right now.
They did. So obviously, like people say, like the first two are the best ones because of all the options, which is fair. What people like from Fallout 1 and 2 did the best theoretically, but they're also the least approachable because they're turn-based game. Like they're like
they're a completely different game. Yeah. The type of games they are now.
We're modern gamers. You need to offer us more.
I still give Bethesda the fucking props of turning what that was into a first-person shooter and making it work for the time. People argue about Fallout 3 being good right now, which is fair. They literally just had the engine of a sword and sorcery game turned into a shooter. So give them.
See, I didn't know that. I just always knew I freaking hated all the shooting in that. Like, because I'm a first-person shooter guy. So, like, I remember Matthew, because Matthew's the Fallout guy growing up. He kept trying to get me to get into it, and I hated the shooting in those Fallout games because it literally felt like it was a turn-based.
The gameplay you're supposed to worry about your stats more than like your accuracy per se. Like you're not the point of which is a problem when you're making an RPG is how much effort you're putting into whether you want the success of the character you're playing as to be based on your skills, like just being able to kill people quicker or something, or do you want to put also the emphasis on like technically the character you're playing ability? So therefore,
I really think like the VAT system in Fallout was a good like middle ground for that. It's a really clever solution.
So I'm going to get into that. That's the thing is...
You should probably explain what it is for people who don't know.
It's... So in the original Fallout games, it was just in the turn-based system, you could target individual parts, probably go for a headshot or go for a cripple, which is really cool, especially in a survival game, so people could do that to you. Wait, I don't think anyone ever did that to you. Because VATS is...
VATS to you?
Well, definitely in the new games, but I'm saying like...
I they did them in the old ones.
Yeah, that'd be a cool idea in the old ones to have like an AI just fucking drop you in the leg or something. But
I see.
In my opinion, I think it's probably something like in the later games, like Fallout 4, especially, they could have like improved upon. Maybe like, so you know how a problem with consoles, like people try to make games easy for consoles, so they only have like so many buttons you can use on a console.
Mm-hmm.
My solution to this would be, I think, in a new hypothetical Fallout game is if they use that system and like you had abilities that you could do, and you would do them in the VAT system rather than having like a hotkey. You would press to go into VATs.
Okay.
You would target a guy and be like, instead of just punching him, you'd be, I want to grapple him, or you want to like take his weapon. Like if you're unarmed and like a guy comes at you through a gun, you could like VATs him, go like click on his gun, like I want to steal his gun, and then there's like a 80% chance based on your melee level that you're able to steal it from him. Like
like if they
be cool.
more into like ability type stuff, like realistic abilities, where say like you were going super into like meleeing. If you had like a melee weapon but it wasn't equipped, like maybe if you press a specific button when you're in VATS, you like pull it out and do like a special attack or something like that.
Yeah,
like I could totally see that.
You could have different abilities based on what like skills you go down or something, and they could also do something with that. That would be my like, if I was in charge of Bethesda and they were looking at me, that'd be my thing. But that's my rant over Fallout.
So one thing that I haven't played this game, and I'm probably going to mispronounce it right or wrong, but there's a recent RPG called like Disco
Elysium.
Elysium. That's how you can. Have you played?
I need to play that game.
I played the first 10 minutes. This is my first introduction to this. I make my character. I make him really empathetic, pretty smart, completely like weak, has no endurance. He'd get blown over by a strong gust of wind. So he wakes up hungover, refuses to pay his bar tab, fails sneaking away from the bartender, and in failing decides, you know what, if I'm going to fail, I'm going to do it with style. So he jumps backwards while flipping off the bartender with both hands, knocks into a woman in a wheelchair, and dies because he has 1 health because I made him weak as fuck. And that was it. That was the game. It rolled the credits.
That game definitely seems like the new like, oh, this is a new way to do the genre, but it does things that older games did, but like in a more refreshed way.
So isn't it like a RPG, but it's based on like, isn't it like a detective like kind of based RPG?
So you're playing as a detective who doesn't know anything about himself because of binge drinking, I think it's assumed. I haven't finished the game. But solving crimes using your abilities is really important. So I think the stats are, you can be really strong, you can be really dexterous, you can be really empathetic, or you can be really smart. And, whichever one of those you specialize in, or a combination of them if you didn't really specialize, is how you solve, the problems put before you. It's based on rolls, too, which I think is kind of cool. So instead of just a hard chance for success, there's variance. So even like a master may screw up once or twice.
I want to get to chance in a second, but what's the setting of the game? I'm just curious because that's is it in our world? Is it in a fantasy world?
Kind of in our world. I'm not
like
sure if there's
like
supernatural elements, but my character was talking to his bow tie, which was giving him prophetic information. So
from what I saw, it looked like, wasn't it almost like not fully into the what's it called, where like Lovecraft? Like I don't think it was like full on Lovecraft. But didn't it kind of feel like
existential horror and stuff?
Well,
I mean, as far as I played, though I didn't play very far, it was just like
more like psychedelic weirdness rather than like action, like Lovecraftian weirdness.
See, I'm just basing off of my memory of screenshots, so I'm completely...
Maybe we should talk about the game we have a bit more knowledge on.
Yeah,
the reason why I wanted to bring that up is because I think that is like the coolest part of RPGs for me, at least like looking into them because I don't play a ton of them, is seeing people take these genres or these themes or these settings that nobody has made an RPG of and RPGify it. Like, I don't know, I'm using it as a verb now, but so you're taking
RPG guns.
So you're taking, with Disco Elysium, I think this is how you pronounced it. You take a, crime solving thing and detectiveness and put an RPG into it. So like, there's so many other things you could do. Like you could get, like someone needs to make a like what are those games like where you own a kitchen and you're having to, or a restaurant and you need to like make all the food and stuff like that? What if someone made an RPG aspect of it so you could either be better at like, advertising or like just actually, or maybe if you're just focusing on making food, you could like focus
Diner Dash
on
was
like
just the waiter.
Yeah, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like, imagine if you incorporated RPG elements in that.
My first experience with Diner. Okay, I'm getting off topic, Matthew. What were you saying?
I'm sorry, Daniel. Did I interrupt you?
No, you're saving this from talking about Diner Dash. Please continue.
Well, I was just gonna. I think that's why I asked like what the setting of that game is. That's cool thing about RPGs is like a big part of it is the setting, because it actually matters. If it's like a hard role playing game where you feel like you're in that world, sometimes the world actually matters. Like I'd play a Star Wars RPG, specifically RPG, so I could make my own character, and then he could be his own character in Star Wars. That sounds cool to me. Or Fallout, or any of these other it's cool being able to play like your own character in these
in that world. And
so it would be cool just to be a fucking guy at a restaurant, or like having to deal with all these customers, or just a high school kid, but like when he at night he fights crime or something.
Persona.
Yeah, Persona. I think that's what that is.
They fight weird psychological stuff. Question:
that's a good idea.
Consider a game like RimWorld a RPG?
That's more of like just like a strategy simulation game.
Yeah, I was
like
gonna say more on like Sim, because aren't you? Yeah. You're not making. Are you making? Do you make like a single character in that game, and then like?
Oh, you make a bunch of characters, but they all have unique backstories. They all interact with one another. I think, like the tagline of the game, "A story generator" by Tynan Sylvester is a good way of putting it, because like. You get attached to each individual character as they go through some of the worst things humanly imaginable.
I've heard.
Yeah. And it forms these unique stories. Like, maybe in the last raid, this character's husband got kidnapped by raiding bandits, and they've got to somehow make enough money for the ransom. Are they going to harvest the prisoner's organs to sell to like intergalactic pirates to make the money, or are they not going to cross that moral boundary and have him lost forever to slavery? It's like interesting stuff like that,
I think it's really interesting because it's like you're taking an RPG. It's like a simulation game, but it like is heavily incorporating like RPG elements, especially with like all of the individual characters.
Yeah, I'd put that in the same Venn diagram as CK2. Because it has a lot of RPG elements of like characters with traits that interact with people, but I think there's so many people doing it. You don't have
one character who you're playing the game through.
Yeah, which I guess technically CK2 does, but
you do. But that character
I don't want to get into that. That's the thing about RPGs is you can't really.
Yeah, like that's the thing. They're so over encompassing because, like we said, we've all had our own like kind of ideas of what an RPG is. One thing that I kind of want to go back to is the Bethesda RPGs, not because of like RPG mechanics in them, but like because of the like modding communities in all of the RPGs. Like at least, especially with like the like Skyrim, the modding scene in Skyrim or the Fallout games, like those type of games. Mainly just the Bethesda ones have such like an awesome modding scene, and that's really cool because in an RPG setting, everyone's always like, oh, what if there was like a character that could do this or this? And then like all of those mods allow you to like actually do that like more than you normally would be able to.
Yeah. I love that about mods. Mods are like the coolest concept for a game for me. It extends, like, it just makes the game objectively better and bigger than like it was made to be.
It's the reason I have 400 hours in RimWorld instead of 200 mods.
What are some of the mods in RimWorld? What are, I didn't know that game even
had mods. Like in the base game, there's like bionic limbs that you can add to make your characters stronger, or just replace limbs that get damaged. And I have one which like expands that, so you have a bunch of like super advanced bionics and like ribs that release drugs. There's one which completely overhauls the combat and makes you have to care about like ammunition type. There's a whole bunch of quality of life mods. There's stuff that adds new factions. There's so much mod material in RimWorld. Like, it's really impressive.
So I know one element of RPGs that we haven't really talked about too much is like the whole tabletop RPG aspect. And I know like especially you two both are like super into Pathfinder and D and
The
D.
progenitor of any game RPG that people think of, mainly because like I think like some of the older PC gamers probably like those old Dungeon and Dragon like Baldur Gate games are probably like their first introduction to like those RPGs, which led to
The
like
RPG
Elder
genre.
Scrolls and like those games starting to make their own version. Yeah.
You want to hear a funny anecdote about it's like old D&D. It's how the cleric archetype got made.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
go ahead.
kind of know about this, but go on.
So one of you got your DM, Dungeon Master. For those of you who don't know, they basically control the world that other people are playing in. One of the players wanted to play a vampire, and another player, in true D&D fashion, said, I want to fuck that guy over. I want to play a vampire hunter. So the DM worked with them, and thus the cleric was born. Not out of any kind of creativity or anything like that. Nope, just straight up malice. Great.
That's what I love about D&D is, I mean, most games have this where like a lot of their core features are just like random bullshit that the people came up with. But with D&D, like when you think of the 9 core classes, a lot of them make sense. You have your fighter, okay, guy who fights, magic guy, they have several magic users, cleric, okay, holy person, and then it's just like barbarian, and you're like, so it's just guy that hits people but stronger, and then it's like paladin. I'm like, what is that? It's like it's a holy warrior that uses their god to fight injustice. It's like, is that what a cleric is? I know the difference between them now, but when I'm first going into this, and then like bard, which is just a guy with a musical instrument. Like I do not think that's like a base requirement for any fantasy, but I guess now it is because D&D does it, and D&D's been doing it for several decades now. Like almost any D&D that any RPG that wants to inspire itself off of D&D has like barbarians and bards now.
Because it's like D&D kind of established that, like just those norms. And I think one thing that I think I love about D&D, and this is coming from someone that like has not played a ton of like tabletop games, is just the fact that it's not like a hard-coded game. Like you could just do whatever you want. Like the DM has literally infinite freedom.
I think one of the first D&D characters I ever made, I decided, you know what, I know you normally play like good characters in this. I'm going to play a necromancer who wants to become a lich. But he's completely insane and he doesn't realize he's working with the good guys. Like, you can do really unique characters and I'll play really unique roles in a D&D.
Yeah, the first character I think I ever, like in my first like actual serious D&D, there were a ton of us and we were all like, you know what we should do for our first time getting into D&D? We should do homebrew characters. And so I don't know why I did, but I was looking up like homebrew characters and I picked this thing, and this was when I used to for some reason just hate anime, just like the stereotypical like hate anime. Like,
yeah, we can tell you really hate anime.
Yeah, now with my anime things. But so this was before I liked all that, and I found this character that was like a shrine maiden, and it was pretty much just like I guess like a healer. I still don't even really know because
I think I remember this. Was this the character that you made where you couldn't like do anything but heal?
Yeah, pretty much.
That was me too.
Fully focused. Oh yeah, I think Matthew was a super healer as well. And then I ended up finding out that like this was apparently just some like weeb like type of, like,
I have an idea
class.
what that is now, like culturally and like within anime terms, and I do find it kind of cringy. I don't know. It's exactly what you think it is. It's just shrine maiden. I don't know much, but
who does shrine shit?
It's just like what, dedicating their lives to healing people.
No, not necessarily. I don't know. It's just, I think it might be a real life historical role, but it might be wrong.
Yeah, well,
but
that's what I love about like those games, because like you say you're the DM, and I think just full on shout out because we don't give this guy enough credit. The only time I've fully actually enjoyed playing a real tabletop game is with Matthew DMing. He is like the single-handed best DM. I mean, I've only played like 4 or 5 games. Matthew is the best DM ever because one of the things he does is he's like, okay, here's the rules of the game. And here are the few rules that I think are total bullshit. I'm gonna just not use them, or I'm gonna incorporate some of my own things. And he fully takes like the fact that it's not a hard coded game to his advantage. So
as someone who's been playing D&D since middle school, before it was cool, need to find some hipster classes. Been playing with a ton of DMs. You're definitely like one of the best ones I think I've had, because you like you make it an interesting world to play in, and you do fun stuff with the characters. It's a strength of D&D.
It's funny being praised for something. I think it's just a like, not even necessarily like an extra mile, and more just like a set baseline of like, okay, what are we here to play D&D for? We're here to have fun. All right, let's do that.
Dude, a lot of people mess up that first step.
And they just play, like, because I know there's aren't there a lot of DMs that just, like, full on, they're like, okay, I read all of the rules. We literally have to follow 150% of the rules, and if we don't, hellfire will rain down.
It's not that bad, obviously. It's not that to the extreme. I mean, there's people that probably think, like, for example...
I don't think you've been playing with some of the people I have.
To be fair. But I know people probably think like if you don't stick to the rules of the game, that it's unbalanced, and then like you're not playing the game as it's meant to be designed for, which is a decent argument. Like, but at the same time, they're not perfect. The people making the game don't like. Are you kidding me? Is a fighter really going to be able to do anything against the wizard of the same level, and they're both like level 20? Like,
yeah, and just because, and this just goes for like video games as well. Just because something was like just because the devs like for either D&D or video games designed something a certain way, that doesn't even mean it's going to be balanced. Like, you look at any video game, or like I'm sure in the rules of like D&D itself, there's a ton of unbalanced things, isn't there?
Yes. And sometimes you just leave it like that. Like, Fireball is probably like one of the best spells you can get at that level. Mm-hmm. Everyone knows that. It's just a thing that does a shit ton of damage, but they keep it like that because it's Fireball. It's supposed to be super cool. I mean, actually, I don't think people really hate that, because like it's cool that Fireball is like good.
Yeah, but it's cool though, and it's fun. That's ultimately like what is important about it.
Hey, it's one of those core things to RPGs. You know, you want to make your players feel cool, and you want it to be fun for them to feel cool.
Yeah, it's not about necessarily powerfulness. It's like the coolness of it. I have a question for you guys in games specifically. Have you ever played a game that's an RPG where it's supposed to be like your choices matter, or like where you feel like you want to do something your character you think you would do, and then you're immediately the game's like, okay, yeah, that's cool, you want to do that, but this is a game, we have to make you do this though, and you're like disappointed? Have you ever felt like that?
Every Telltale game, yes.
I was literally, as he was saying that, I was thinking of like the Walking Dead Telltale games, even though.
Oh, which character do you want to survive? Well, we're lazy writers, so they both die by the start of the next act anyways.
But yeah, I can't think of any examples, but no, I feel that like on a spiritual level, Matthew, even though I've only probably encountered a couple times.
There's so many nitpicks I can think of. Some of them are fine. Like sometimes dialogue shouldn't have that big of an impact. Like sometimes it'll be like, I'll say something slightly mean, and I know in the game the character's mood won't actually be affected if I say it, which is fine. But like sometimes it'll be like, sometimes I'll be like, I want to approach a situation like this, and then my character will say something completely different, and I'll be like, that's not what I wanted to say. Or
it's like, oh no, sorry, go ahead.
Or just like, yeah, like wanting to do something a certain way in the game. In an RPG, sometimes it's me overestimating like the quality of the game in a way. But like if a game like, ooh, I wonder if I could go around the back and do it like this, it's like you failed because you weren't following the main character, and you're like, okay.
That makes me think of Dishonored.
GTA reminds me of that.
Oh yeah.
AC or Assassin's Creed.
Yeah, that's like, I think the stereotypical thing in that is like, say there's dialogue options in an RPG, and it's like this character does something to like spite you or like supposedly make you mad, and there's like three options. One that's like, okay, I'll be a little bitch and just apologize even though I did nothing wrong. One of them will be like, I want to kill your family, and then one will be like kind of in the middle, and then like you press the middle one, but then it still goes like hard one way or the other. Like, you're not trying to be mean, you just want to acknowledge the fact that they did do something wrong to you, and you're just like, I will eat your firstborn child, and you're like, that is not what I wanted to say at all.
I can't tell you how many times I've like quick saved out or like just cancel the playthrough I was going to just because of a fucking dialogue option gone wrong. And it's like everyone hates you for this one specific decision. Okay, I want to rant because this is my favorite me getting mad at a decision in a video game, which is Mass Effect 2. And it's towards the end of the second one. There's the guy that's leader of Cerberus, Daniel, you know, the guy that's kind of a good guy in the second one. Do you don't remember him?
Nope.
He's the guy that basically hires you in the second game. He's the one with the cool eyes.
I never played Mass Effect, Matthew.
Oh, you didn't?
No.
That's when you did. Okay.
No,
well,
all right. I tried playing. I think like my older brother got me like the 3 of them. And then I hit this one point in the first game where the game would crash every time I tried to play it. And if I couldn't play them sequentially, just wasn't going
that's
to.
fair. Mass Effect 1's rough.
You gotta dedicate all that time for the different colors of explosions.
Okay, I want to get to that too. So first, but in the second game, it ended, and it was like the guy that's the leader of the sketchy organization is like, I want you to leave the enemy base alive for me so I can research it. It's like, oh, that's kind of edgy. And the two companions I picked that were right next to me at the time were like, you should do it. It's good for science. And the other person's like, I think you should do it. This will help defend against the real bad guys. And I was like, okay, I'll leave it open. And then every single person, all my companions on that ship, which is like 12, I think, all said I shouldn't have done it, including the 2 people that were with me when I made the decision to save it. And I was so upset. But besides that, I think the biggest tragedy of like an RPG like story was probably Mass Effect 3 with that ending, mainly because the second one was probably like people consider like one of the best like RPG stories because it's literally a suicide mission. You have all these companions that you have to convince like 12 people to get on a crew with you and go on this thing that'll probably die. And each one has their own cool story. It's like getting the crew together in a heist movie. It's each one has their own, like there's an assassin, there's a sniper, there's a doctor, and all this other stuff. It's really cool. Depending on how much loyal they are to you by doing personal quests for them, and then depending on what upgrades you have for your ship, affects how many people die on the suicide mission, objectively. And they won't be around in the third game. That's really cool. If you completely ignore the side quests and don't upgrade your ship, most of them will die. And
so then, like do they offer
carry
you side
over
quests
from one game to another?
Yeah. No, like if you like talk to them enough, they'll eventually approach you like something in their past that they want you to tackle. If you do that, they're now loyal to you, and you get I think basically their skill tree unlocks the second half of it. I think that, or maybe that's.
But I'm saying, like, if you kill, like, say if they die in like Mass Effect 2, and then your save transfers over. Which, first of all, I want to say quickly, things that have like transferring over to different games, that's like cool as hell. Like, regardless of if it impacts, like just being able to see your decisions matter across like a trilogy of games is really cool. But my question is, like, if someone dies in the second game, are there any characters that like die in the second game that would have given you more quests? Or
you miss out on so much stuff.
Really? So you miss out on an entire another game's side quest. That's interesting.
I went through the effort of beating the second game with saving everyone because I like everyone. But at the end of it, I'm like, well, story-wise, theoretically, it would have been cooler if some of them died. And I'm like, yeah, but like there's a couple companions. I like sit at night. I'm like, okay, did I want anyone to die? I'm like, oh shit, that's a character. Yeah, no, he probably could have died because he doesn't do anything in the third game. But in Mass Effect 3, I want to get to this because we're running out of time. But yeah, it's all that work. I was like, holy shit! If Mass Effect 2 had that many different types of endings, what can Mass Effect 3 bring? Yeah, technically the strength of your final battle kind of affects the final mission, but then in the end, you get approached by the AI thing, and it's like, oh yeah, I built the Reapers to extinguish humanity because inevitably synthetics and organics always fight, which is a random topic. I kind of think it's kind of a topic throughout the series. But then this guy randomly brings up that, like, this is why I want to exterminate everything every couple thousand years. I'm like, okay. So you either can, destroy all synthetics and have humanity, like all the organics remain. You can harmonize them. I forgot what the third ending, though, is. There's one where you just destroy all robots, which is kind of fucked up, to be honest. Because then, like, there's several AI characters in the game. You can just synthesize them so they're both just together, like everyone's part organic, part synth, which is a little weird. And then I forget what the third one is. I think it might just be like Harmony or something where they just work together, which
But
I think is the best option.
It just kind of showed you the different, like, was that what the different explosions?
Yeah, that it's just in the end, it was the same cutscenes usually, except the explosion was green, blue, or red. And so yeah.
I remember people getting pretty mad about that. But I guess to wrap it up, I think we might have like touched on it a little bit, but like let's each like just go and say what our favorite, since we're talking about RPGs, just what our favorite RPG game is in total. Mine would probably just be Borderlands 2. Kind of already talked about it a little bit, but what would yours be, Dan?
Overall, Fallout New Vegas, that I've played recently, under rail.
Okay. What about you, Matthew?
Fallout New Vegas, definitely. Probably Skyrim, because it's just a good game. I think for the time, it was really cool, revolutionary and cool. Mass Effect.
Yeah.
And
there's probably
like
some
3 games.
like PC-specific RPG I can think of.
Yeah.
But
I also, just since we're talking about tabletop things, I know Matthew tried it a little bit, but that Divinity Original Sin, those games, apparently those are really good to mimic D&D.
We don't have the time to play it or talk about it, but there's this game called Pillars of Eternity that Obsidian made. Obsidian are the people that made Fallout New Vegas. Pretty good. Good game. Yeah, we have less than a minute left.
Yes, because we're in the apocalypse, we're relying on Zoom, just like everybody else in the entire galaxy. But
our capitalist overlords won't give us more time on their servers.
Exactly. So, okay, well, it has been a ton of fun talking about the RPG genre, and I hope you guys stay tuned for next week. We'll be talking about some other genre that we will figure out at some point. But thank you guys so much for watching, and see you guys next week.
Goodbye.
Bye.